Hey, what's up? This is Nick Walter from madeupbypeople.com, and this is a tutorial to teach you how to get Parse Server up and running on DigitalOcean hosting. I'm going to take you through everything you need. I know it can be a bit complicated, but I'm here to walk you through that. So before we dive into the details of all that, let's talk about how we got here. And it all came from the announcement on January 28th, 2016, with the announcement that Parse is shutting down. Oh, what a heartbreaker. I've made a little tribute video and I'd like to roll that now.
Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too.
Oh, the times we've had, Parse and I got me my very first backend for an app, and it's just great stuff. So I'm sad to see it go, but I'm really excited for the future. Big shout out to Parse for giving developers a year to keep their service open and letting people move on to another service. But also an even bigger thing is them open sourcing their server code. Now, it's not everything. It's not like every single feature is there in this Parse server thing, but most of it's there. Like the core guts of it are there. And I think that's really special because as soon as I heard this announcement about Parse shutting down, I got a ton of messages from my students. I teach iOS programming full time. And a lot of them were like, "Whoa, what are we going to do now that Parse is shut down? What's the next thing you're going to teach for the backend for apps?" And I thought a lot about it. I thought, Firebase is really hot. It seems kind of be the next go-to thing. There's other things like Apple's CloudKit, although I'm a little bit untrusting of Apple with web services. And then I was like, well, maybe, people could make their own backends from scratch, but I mean, that gets really technical. And so I just had all these things mulling around, but I really thought about it, and I think Parse Server is the way to go. And let me give you my reasoning behind this. What made Parse great was that app developers who knew app development wanted a backend. If you have an app that doesn't have a backend, odds are it's probably not that cool of an app. At least I noticed that with my apps. It was the ones that actually connected to some internet service that made them cool. And so with that, Parse was awesome because you just made an account and almost instantly you could start saving objects and pulling them back from that server, right? It made it really quick, really easy. And so, something else like Firebase, that makes that great. But the thing is, Firebase is in a very similar situation that Parse is in. Firebase was acquired by Google, and, any day we could see a similar announcement where they say, Firebase is now shut down and you have this amount of time to move. But with Parse open sourcing their server code, I'm hoping that that's something that will exist forever. Right? Because now it's going to be developed by the community of people that are going to use the Parse server for their backend, and everybody individually hosts their Parse server instance on their own server. That's what we're going to use DigitalOcean for. And so it's not like there's some company that has a monthly cost of keeping this up. No, it's open source code that's maintained by everybody, and then everybody has their own instance of that server with a server that they pay for. In this case, DigitalOcean, it's way cheap. It's like $5 a month, and you get some free months initially. And so I just think it's a really sustainable model. It's not something that one day there's going to be a shutdown, like all the people who contribute to this open source project are going to be like, we are now shutting down this project. And even if they are, you can just clone their code and have your own copy of it, your own repo of it, which is great. So that's why I think Parse Server is great, and I think DigitalOcean is a great place to put it on. There's, at least in my experience, no easier website to get a server up and running, and for $5 a month, that's about as cheap as you're going to get for running a server. So with that, let's go ahead and move over to the desktop, and I've created this little to-do list for our tutorial. I love Apple's little stickies app. It's one of those dumb but very fun and useful apps. If you think stickies are fun, you're probably crazy like me. But we're going to sign up for DigitalOcean. We're going to create our droplet or a server. We're going to install Node, and then we're going to install an example app. We're going to test that app with a curl, And then we're going to test it with an iOS app, and then we're going to celebrate with soda and bugles. Woohoo! And you might be wondering, like, what's curl? I don't know what a node is. Don't worry about that. At each step, I'm going to be explaining that, but just know I'm going to refer back to the sticky throughout the tutorial. So the very first item on our sticky is sign up for DigitalOcean. And I have a special coupon code for you so that you can get $10 of free usage on DigitalOcean, which it's only $5 a month, so that's 2 free months. And yes, this is affiliate code, so if you sign up using this code, it helps me out. I make money from it. I'm being completely upfront about that, but I'd love for you to use it because you get the 2 free months and I get some reward from it too. So let's go to Safari. And or if you're using Chrome, Firefox, whatever it is, and go to madeupbypeople.com/do. And remember, you've got to go to this madeupbypeople.com/do to get the coupon for the 2 free months. And so once you're there, it takes you to this DigitalOcean page, and you have to sign up to make an account. So I'm going to use Nick at madeupbypeople.com, and for the password, well, you should set your own password. I shouldn't be telling you what that is, or mine. And then go ahead and create an account. Then you'll come to this page, and first thing you got to do is confirm your email. So go check your inbox. DigitalOcean should have sent you a link. You just need to click on that, and then it will bring you back here. So go click on that, and then we'll rejoin the video. So if you went and confirmed that email, you probably came to a page like this where it asks for your payment information, and you may be wondering, hey, you said this was free, we got 10 free bucks. Why do you have to put in payment information? Well, if you scroll down here, you should have a thing that says thanks for signing up. You automatically redeem referral promo credit for $10. And this is where things got confusing. I had to add this amendment because I showed this tutorial to some friends and they're like, I got confused at this part. So DigitalOcean, when you use the coupon, doesn't cost money, but the deal is they give you the $10 free in credits as long as you put in payment information, meaning that after you've used your $10, they want to say, if you like our service and want to keep going, we want to be able to charge you for that. So that would be $5 every month if you use the server that we're talking about. But if any times during that $10 amount that you have, you decide you don't want to use DigitalOcean, you can always cancel it. So if you do the credit card option, it won't charge you at all until your $10 runs up, at which at that point, it will just charge you the $5 a month. And if you do the PayPal option, it will pre-charge you the $5, but I even went and did an experiment. I'd prepaid with PayPal before, and I told them, hey, I didn't really like it, and they gave me a refund, even though the website says no refunds. So they were really helpful with that. So whatever strategy you decide to do, either the credit card one or the PayPal one, DigitalOcean just needs that because it's kind of like, we'll give you the $10, but you got to say that, hey, I might be interested in this. And at any time during that, if you want to cancel it, you can, and you won't be charged anything. All right. Just wanted to set that up. Let's get back to the video. So do your payment stuff, and then let's continue on with the tutorial. So after you put in your billing information, you should come to a screen like this. If you're not there yet, click on Droplet, and it will take you here. And so we've confirmed the email, we updated the billing stuff, now we just need to create a droplet. And a droplet essentially is a little mini server on DigitalOcean's servers. So this is kind of your own space where you can run anything you want. And we're going to put the parse server onto this little droplet. So hit create droplet, and we'll wait for this puppy to go. And we want Ubuntu here. Make sure we have the one that's like 14.0.4.3. If you're watching this like a year or two later, maybe there's a more updated version, but at least that's the one that we're going to be using, is 14.04.3. Okay. And we also want x64. So with that, it says you can choose the size here, and unless your app is being used by thousands and thousands of people, you don't need anything bigger than the $5 a month option. And DigitalOcean will give you tons of alerts if, your server's being hammered all the time and it's like shutting down and it's like, hey, you need to move up in another size. It will let you know. And the cool thing about DigitalOcean is it's super easy to move up in those sizes, but let's be honest, there's a lot of apps that are never going to move beyond this $5 mark. I have an app that I run that makes probably about $600 a month, has a fairly good use of users, and it doesn't require anything more than this little $5 a month server. It's super small, okay? So make sure you pick $5 there. Come down, you can pick your region. I'd probably assume use whatever they auto-selected for you. As far as this stuff goes, we don't need private networking, backups, or IPv6, but we do want to do this user data thing. And now this is where we're going to open up DigitalOcean's tutorial for setting up parse server. So they've got a tutorial and we're just going to walk through that. It's kind of the backbone for this. So open up a new tab and search parse server DigitalOcean, or if you'd like to, I've provided the link down in the description of this video if you don't want to search this. But this is the one you're looking for, how to run parse server. So it kind of walks you through the things that you need to do. I'll be honest though, I tried walking through it and there's a lot of stuff that's left out. So that's hopefully where this video comes in handy, is me walking you through those things, because it was a struggle for me. So with this, with a parse server, you have to have a Mongo database installed on it. And so if you include this script when you're creating your droplet here, you don't have to do all the code that they mention inside of this link. So on here it says by adding this script, if you click on this, this will give you the code and you just have to copy all of this. Okay, so I'm going to copy there, come back here, and I'm going to paste this here. So this just says, as you're creating this droplet, this server, go ahead and install MongoDB for me. DB stands for database. Okay, and then here it says add your SSH key. So with DigitalOcean, it creates these servers that you can install anything you want on there, and you usually have to log into these servers, and if you have one of these SSH keys, it makes it really nifty and it makes your droplet really secure. And if we go back to this tutorial, I guess I have to hit the back page here, you really want to check out this new Ubuntu server checklist. And it shows you all these kind of great ways of things you can set up those SSH keys and stuff. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just trying to do the simplest version to get us up and running, and so we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to roll through without that. But for long term, and if you've got the time, I would go ahead and do the SSH keys. For this, the main thing I want to do is show you the particulars of getting parse server on there. So now that we've got that, it's asking how many droplets do you want, which is like how many servers. We just want one of those. And what's cool here is you can create a name for your server. So you can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it something like my cool parse server, bruh. And you can use, I'm going to keep it all lowercase. You can use letters, numbers, dashes, periods, whatever you want. You don't even have to name it, but I think it's kind of cool that you can name it. So then let's go ahead and hit create. And this is the part that I think makes DigitalOcean so awesome. It just makes it very simple to get a server up and running. Like we hit create droplet and they say this takes about 60 seconds. I think maybe the website said 55 seconds. I'll be honest, the difference between 60 and 55 isn't a big deal, but you can see this little loading bar. It's cool. Like, and boom, just like that, through that little bit of me talking, our server got set up. Like that's how quickly it was created. So now that we have that, we have to go and access this. So the way to access your server is using something called SSH, which if you've never used that before, it's a way to communicate with the server, and it's all text-based, so there's no kind of, user interface where you could like move a mouse or anything like that. It's like all text. And I know that that can be scary. The first time I worked with it, I was just like, I feel like I'm going to break something really quickly here if I do anything wrong. And it just takes some time getting used to. So if you feel a little bit uncomfortable, know that that just happens the first time you're working with something like this. But let's go ahead and click on this More button here, and we want to do Access Console. So this will make it so that we can connect to the server. And if we scroll down here, we can see some stuff. And DigitalOcean, in the meantime, has emailed you a password. So go ahead and grab your password. I'm going to go grab mine, then I'm going to rejoin the video. So if you went and checked your email, you should have gotten an email from DigitalOcean containing both your username and your password. So we can use these to go get into our server, to log into our server and start doing some things. And with this console here, I haven't been able to copy and paste the things that I've been looking for. So we'll actually have to manually type that password, but that's okay. We got the cool little sticky with us. So the username, root, password, this big jumble of text here. So let's go ahead and hit enter on this thing. And if we see if we do this, it says my cool server, bruh, login. So this is where we want to put the username, which most likely is root, just like mine. Then hit enter. Then it's going to ask for the password. Now, with me, I wasn't able to just straight copy paste this. I have to manually type it. Maybe that's the same for you. So I'm just going to go 0100D3 70364. Oh my gosh, I'm typing on the end there. I've got to make sure I have this selected. 0100D3 703648B675. Hit enter, and you should get this screen now. I'm going to put this back to full screen, where it says you are required to change your password immediately. So you have to enter in, I shouldn't have closed that yet, the old password one more time. So I'm going to do my 0100D3 703648B675. And then it will ask for your new password. So put in a new password. Make sure it's fairly difficult. It doesn't have to be incredibly difficult, but somewhat difficult. And after you enter it in twice, you should see this screen. So the reason that I was very public with this password is that as soon as you log in, it makes you change it. So now this password means nothing. You can go and try and log into my thing here. It won't work. To be honest, I'm probably going to shut down this droplet by the end of this tutorial because I don't want anyone logging in and doing stuff here. But go back to full screen here, and we can see that now we're logged in and we have a password for this. So there's going to be a lot of this tutorial. Remember this thing here that we want to copy and paste some code for. And so remember, we can't copy paste in here. So this isn't ideal for us. So if you're on a Mac, we want to open up the terminal, which is going to be our best way to communicate with the server. So if you hit Command Spacebar, it'll open up your Spotlight. Command is the thing just to the left or right of the spacebar on your keyboard. And in here, if you just start typing terminal, it'll open up that program. And if you've never used terminal before, this is the way to type commands to the computer. Now, you can use this for your local Mac, but we're going to be using it to actually be talking with that server over on DigitalOcean's server, our server within their servers, right? Our droplet. Okay, so to connect to that, we're going to do SSH. Just type this in here. And if you don't have this cool black and green that I do, you can right-click this and choose any different kind of style you want. I think I'm on Homebrew. One, if you're in a really chill mood to do, sometime is Ocean. I like Ocean. But I'm going to do Homebrew here. So type SSH space root, that's our username, @ and then do the @ symbol. And now we need to get the IP address of the server, and the IP address is down here. This is just the way to access or get to our droplet. So copy that, come back to your terminal and paste that in. Okay. And oh, looks like we did not pass in the right thing here. Known. Okay, let's try this again. SSH root @ I'm going to just manually type this 104.131.36.76. Boom. We do that. It says, do you want to add this thing to your key? Are you going to be connecting with this again? Let's say yes. And it permanently adds that. And now it's asking for the password. And this is the new password that you have set. So it's not the one that was emailed to you. So we'll go ahead and type that one in. And boom, we're in. And now we're in this place where we can copy paste things and we don't have to use this thing. So let's move back, or first let's go to our sticky here and sign up for DigitalOcean. That is done. So I'm going to make this an X because we finished that. And we've also created a droplet. Woo! Yeah. Okay, but now let's go to the tutorial. The next thing we got to do is install Node. So we come down here and it's like, okay, you've probably got this up, and they walk us through how to do this. So first thing we want to do is this CD with this little hyphen thing. I just really recommend copy pasting here. And so I'm going to paste that in and hit enter. We were already in that spot, but that's okay. And again, if you've never worked with a terminal before and you're kind of like, I have no idea what's going on here, don't worry about it. This is just kind of a way, essentially what this droplet is that we've made up in the cloud is it's a computer running up there, and it doesn't have like a visual, thing that we can use with the mouse, but we can use these text-based commands to work with it. So you'll learn a couple things as we're going along here. Next thing that we want to do is install Node. So we're going to copy this just like this, and paste it in. Hit enter. And now that we've done that, we're going to come select this thing that says nano, paste that in. All right, and we can see the stuff that it put in for us here. This is just saying if you want to check this out, and I don't think we really need to check on this. So go ahead and hit Control X. Okay, so that's Control in the bottom left corner and X. That'll get you out of there. And then here we're just going to run this next line, which should go install node, or at least this is the one before that. So we're going to paste that in, hit enter, and you can see the terminal go crazy. I remember the first time I was working with the terminal and I was installing something on a server. I was like, this thing looks like the freaking Matrix, man. Like, there's all this like words and stuff that are happening. Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. But we'll just wait for that stuff to go. You can always increase the size of your terminal screen here if you want to. Kind of just put it off to the side. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, while that's going, let's go ahead and look what our next step is. Okay, it wants us to do this install thing. So, oh, looks like that's done. Now let's copy this line. Okay, copy, and then we'll paste in here. Boom, and it goes out and does like a million things. That's what's cool about these servers, man. I mean, you put in one little command and like a million different things happen, which is really neat. It's also a little bit crazy because if you do something wrong, it can go nuts. And while this is going, I'd like to mention, so we logged in with this root user, and whenever you're working with a server, it's typically bad form to be logged in and using that root user. You should really only use the root user to make other users, and then give those users some privileges to do like root things. But again, for the sake of this tutorial, I just want you to get up and running as soon as possible. If you follow this server checklist guide, it will teach you how to make a user that's not root, but still can use some of those root privileges. And you can just kind of do as much as that as you want. So I'm going a little bit bad form here by using the root user, but again, the purpose of this is to show you how to get parse server up and running. So let's see how this is working. Looks like it finished. That's good. So we're going to come down here, and I think we just crossed off a sticky. We installed Node. So let's put our X there. Then the next thing we want to do is install the example app. So Parse Server has made an example app of what it looks like to make your own Parse Server. So I'm going to open this in a new tab and just show you what this is. It's just a project here on GitHub. They have their own kind of directions here about if you want to run this locally on your own computer, or if you're going to put it on a place like Heroku, AWS, Azure. I hope I said that right. But anyways, it's got some details, but we're just going to come back here, and again, this tutorial has got all the code for us. So we're going to copy this one, which says get clone, which essentially what this is doing is it's going to this GitHub project, and it's grabbing all the code and putting it now on our DigitalOcean droplet. So we're going to paste that in and hit enter. Okay, that was very quick. And then we want to go into where this parse server is. So I'm going to take a little bit of time here to show you how to use the terminal in SSH. So we're communicating with that server, right? And if you know how to do this, just skip forward a minute or two. But if we type in ls and hit enter, this essentially shows us everything inside of like where we are, like all the folders. So I think it's a good comparison to show this. So I'm actually going to type exit here. This will disconnect us from our connection with the server. Now we're just back on the computer. Here you can see Nick's MacBook Pro 3. And I'm going to bring up a Finder here. I'm going to put it off to the side, and I'm going to have this thing to the other side. So on here, if I type pwd, it'll show you where I am. So it says I'm in user/Nick, and you're saying, where are you? Like, what do you mean? And that's within the file system. So anytime you're working with the terminal, either on your own computer or like SSHing with like a droplet, you're kind of in the file system. So you can see if I click on Nick here on my computer, this is essentially where I'm at inside the terminal. And if you type ls, that shows you all the folders that are inside of the current place that you're in. They call them directories here, but folders, directories, same things. Like you can see applications, box syncs, creative clouds, like these things all match up. So if I want to go to my desktop, for example, I do CD, which stands for change directory, and then I start typing out desktop. And if I type desktop out and I make sure the capital is the same here, capital desktop, and I hit enter, you can see now I'm in the desktop. So if I hit LS, well, it doesn't show anything, but if I, came here to my desktop, you can see there's not anything there. And if I right click here and make a new folder, I'm just going to call it like hello or something like that. And now if I type LS, you can see that there's that hello folder there, and we can even go into that one. So I can do CD, make sure I do capital hello, just like that. And now I'm in hello. Now there shouldn't be anything inside of hello. There's not. But the point of this is I want you to know when you're working with the terminal, you're kind of moving through the file system. So hopefully with these two things side to side, you can see how you're moving. And if you ever want to go back, you just do CD, got to make sure the terminal's selected, CD space ... and that makes you go back one folder. So when I do that, you can see now I'm at the desktop. If I do CD ... I go back and now I'm in Nick, right? Which is this thing with all the different places. And yeah, I just wanted to show you that quick tutorial so that whenever you see like CD or something like that, that's like a pretty basic thing when you're using the terminal and SSH that you should know about. So we're going to exit out of that, and then we've got to reconnect back to the server. So remember, we're going to do that SSH space root at, and we want to go get whatever this IP address is. Okay, we'll copy that, paste in here and hit enter. And it's going to ask for that password. We'll put it back in, and boom, we're in the server. So if we come back here, it's telling us, hey, we need to enter the parse server example directory you just cloned. So if we type ls and hit enter, you can see there's this thing called node source setup, which is what we created earlier. And there's also this parse server example, which should be like a different color depending on what terminal theme you're using. But this is a folder that we can move into, and this is the one it wants us to. So we type CD, and then we can start typing, parse. And if it knows exactly where you want to go, and if you start typing parse, you'll notice if I hit tab on my computer, it'll auto-complete the rest for me. So I type parse, and it knows what I wanted to do, and I hit enter. Now I'm inside of that directory or folder. Okay, so let's hit ls just to see what's inside of here. Ooh, a bunch of different, files and things like that. But let's get back to the tutorial here. So now that we're here, it wants us to do npm install. So I should have explained this earlier. If you don't know what Node is a framework to run a web server that could do anything. It could host a website. It could do like an API. In this case, it's going to host like this parse server thing. And so npm stands for Node Package Manager, and it just it's in charge of getting everything that Node needs in order to run. And so one of those, a big one, is the parse server. But all we're going to do inside of here is type npm install, just like that. And it's going to go out and do about 1 million things. So, luckily it's got this little load bar here. Although I did see something on Twitter the other day that if you somehow do the option that doesn't show the load bar, that it can cut your time that this takes like in half or something like that, which is pretty intense. But yeah, I guess the next thing that we have to do is test. So let's just hang out for a second while that's done. Oh, finished before I was even ready for it. Okay, cool. So that's all done. Let's get back to our stickies here. We're making good progress. We're flying through this. Let's X that out. So now that we've installed the example app, let's test it to see if it's even working. So it says in order to test it, you got to do this npm start. So this is where I was a little frustrated with the tutorial because it did not work like I was expecting. So in here, if you copy paste that npm start and hit enter, you're like, oh, it's working. And then like 1 million things explode. And the big thing here is it says you must provide an app ID and master key. And so it doesn't matter what they are, but you've kind of got to provide these now with your own parse server. Before, it was something that parse would give you, say, okay, here's your app ID and this is your key. You can put those in there. But now it's something that you set. So in order to fix that, let's type ls to see what files are inside of here. We want to get into this index.js. This has the information about what our app, let's see, what are they called here? Our app ID is and our master key is. So in order to edit it, you can use a program called Nano to go in and change things. And if you've never done this before, again, this is going to be tricky, but don't worry, you can handle this. Type nano space, and then we're going to do the name of this file, which is index. And if I hit tab, you'll see it auto completes, and I'll hit enter. So inside of here, this is this big file, and you can move. The way to move around here is the arrow keys. And if you ever want to get out of this, hit the Control and X key at the same time. You can get out of it. But let's go back in one more time. Nano index.js. Okay. And then inside of here, there's two lines that we want to change. So if we move our cursor over here, we can see this is the app ID. And right now it's just called my app ID, but we want to change it to our own thing. That's why it was giving us the error. So I'm going to move the cursor until I can start deleting this. And I deleted too much. Make sure you have these two single quotes there. And inside the single quotes, you want to put in your new app ID. And you can decide what this is going to be. You can call it whatever you want. So I'm just going to be very simple. I'm going to call it Nick. It's a shorter one. Maybe I should do something more intense, but I'm just going to call it Nick. And then the other, you can see down on the line below that, it has the master key. And it didn't have an example one by default, at least when I was making this video. Maybe they've changed that. But inside these little single quotes, you want to put in some master key. And as you can see, add your master key here, keep it secret. So this is something you do not want to reveal to people, because that master key, you can do a lot of damage with that thing. It's kind of like a last resort to go in and fix things. And so I'm obviously going to be showing you mine, but I'm shutting down this droplet later, so it doesn't really matter what it is. And I'm just going to say hello from the other side. Just like that. Hello from the... I'm not going to do the full song. Okay, so now that we've done that, go ahead and hit Control X like that, and it's going to say, hey, you've modified some things. Do you want to really save this? And hit the Y for yes, and then hit enter. See, that nano thing's a little bit tricky. And if you had any issues here with saving that, like it says you couldn't do it, my guess is you're not logged in as a root user. You use something else. And if you're ever logged in not as the root user and you can't get something to work, you usually have to type sudo space and then the thing that you were going to do, like nano index.js. But because we're the root user, we never have to do that sudo thing. But if you're running into issues, that might be what the problem is. So now that we've fixed that part, we should be able to go back and do this thing, the npm start, just like that, hit enter, and our server should be running for real. So you can see this thing's working here. It says it's on port 1337. I'll tell you about that in a second here. And yeah, it says this is how you can go and check things. So this is the part where we want to go test and see if the server is working. So there's this thing called curl, which is a way to send requests to a server, and you can kind of do it with the terminal. It's really easy to do it. So we have this terminal open up here, and I'm going to right click the terminal here, and I want a new window. I'm going to use that ocean one because I like the vibes coming from that. And I'm going to bring it down here, and we're going to use this to test whether you know, that our server is actually up and running and if we can use it. So I guess even the first thing that we could do to check if it's running, if you go to on a new tab here, go back to DigitalOcean, get the public IP address, so copy that and go to this, and if you paste that and do :1337 just like that and hit enter, it should say I dream of being a website. So that's a big key of whether it actually is working or not. That's kind of a very for sure this is working. We're going to get back to that curl thing, but do whatever your IP address is, :1337, and this should show up. Okay. So I'm going to X out of that. And now if we go back to this tutorial here, it has some stuff that we can put into curl. And so there's a few things that we have to change from this. We can't just straight copy paste it. For example, you see the app ID is called my app ID, but we changed ours to Nick. And the other thing is it's trying to check it out at localhost, and we want to check it at the actual IP address that the thing is at. So we need to paste this into some other kind of text program. I'm going to open up Xcode for this, okay? Don't blame me. Xcode's just kind of my home ground. There's other great text editors out there, and I'm just going to use a playground actually to get this open. And it's going to look kind of funny just because it's not Swift code, so it's going to bark at us, but we just need a text editor essentially. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to change my app ID to Nick. Your app ID, put that in there. Remember when we did the nano thing? Like whatever you put in for app ID, you want to put that in there. And then for the name here, instead of localhost, delete that, and then go grab whatever your public IP address is. So we're going to copy that, come back here, paste it in, but keep this :1337. So now copy all of this, copy that. Let's open up the terminals. We're going to put this inside of the Ocean terminal and hit enter. And if you did it correctly, you should get object ID created at da-da-da-da. And this is saying, hey, I added an object to parse, which means it's totally working. Isn't that sweet? Your parse server is running. Let's go to the stickies to celebrate here. Boom, we got an X. We tested the server with curl. It's awesome. That's working. Now, it is working with curl, but it's not exactly working with... we want it to work with an actual app. That's kind of the end goal of all of this. So let's go back to the tutorial. Let's make sure there's nothing big we missed here. Stuff that you can configure here. I don't think we need to mess around with any of this. This looks fine. Okay. And all right. So we've had enough of this tutorial. I'm actually going to go ahead and X this out. We'll X this. And now we just need an app that has the parse SDK in it to go ahead and test this. So I'm going to do a new tab and search for parse SDK sample project. All right. And if we go to the parse tutorial page, let's see, I think we want the docs in here. Yes, and if we go to download, we want the blank project. Okay, so as of the time that I've filmed this, this page on Parse is still available. It's very easy to believe that within the next year this won't exist, but in your Google search, you just need to find a project that has the Parse SDK inside of it, or just download the Parse SDK and put it into an app that you already have, or just a new project. And it really shouldn't be too bad. Like if you go to, if you just search Parse SDK iOS, probably somewhere up here, their GitHub page will show up. Yes, this Parse SDK iOS SOX. And this has tons of directions about how you can install this into your own app. You can use CocoaPods, Carthage, doing your own thing. But for me, and hopefully for you, just doing this, getting a project with the thing installed is what you want. So open up the Parse starter project. Okay, and inside of here, there's one that's in Objective-C, one's in Swift. We want the Swift one. And we just want to go ahead and open that project. So we can see that it's here, ready to rock and roll. But what we've got to do is go to the app delegate. And usually this is where you uncomment this line and you put in the parse application ID and the client key, all that stuff. But things are a little bit different here because we set up our own parse server. This code right here would try and connect with parse.com's server where we want to go put in our own stuff. So we have to go about this a little bit differently. And so we're going to delete this line and instead say parse.initialize with configuration. And you can see it's looking for a parse client configuration. So we're going to do a little bit of code up above this, and we're going to say parse client configuration. And then we're going to do the open parenthesis, and we want to do this one with the block. And if we hit enter on this, it will autocomplete. I kid you not, while filming this, the power just went out in my apartment. Literally, like, the light shut off, the computer went down, everything just went nuts. It was crazy. So anyways, this was a good place to come back to. We have so random. This thing, hit enter one more time. We've got to give a name to this parameter, so I'm just going to call it config. So the whole purpose of this little block here is it's saying, okay, you need to set some things inside of this config, and then we'll pass that eventually into there. So there's three things that we need to set inside, and we're going to say first say config.application ID. Remember, this is the app ID that you created. I used Nick, whatever yours is, that's totally fine. Next, you need to do config.client key. Now, the client key, at least as far as I've researched, when you're using parse server on your own thing, not like parse.com, it doesn't matter what the client key is. So I'm just going to say right now, ABC123. I don't know if that eventually means something. If someone knows more, please comment on this video and let me know. I'll put a comment in there, but I'm pretty sure you can just put whatever there. And for whatever reason, you need to have the client key or else parse freaks out. Then we're going to do config.server, and this is the big one here. I mean, I guess application ID was too, but this is saying this is where you should look for all this parse server interaction. And the default is parse.com/parse, but for us, we want it to go to our server/parse, okay? So let's go back to Safari and let's copy this IP address again. Let's do a new tab. We're going to paste that in and do the :1337. That's the port number. It's not hugely important, but so just get back to that page where it says I dream of being a website, right? So you do your IP address :1337. Copy all of this, come back to Xcode and paste that inside of the string, and then just add /parse, okay? And that's how to get to your server. So all this information looks really good. Now we're just going to take this huge parse client configuration thing, cut it, and paste it right inside of there. And now let's run our app and see what happens. And you'll notice as soon as we run this, we have a big issue. And that's that. If we come up here, in iOS 9, if you're not using HTTPS, it barks at you and says, hey, you need to be using HTTPS. If not, you need to specify which site it is, For us, eventually you want to get HTTPS on your server so that you could say HTTPS, and rather than an IP address, hopefully you'd have like your own name, like mycoolapp.com, something like that. But for the meantime, we can't do the HTTPS because that takes a lot to set that up. So we're just going to do this, but we're just going to kind of cheat and just allow all HTTP connections. So I think the easiest way to do this is just select part of this error here and go Google it. This should bring up the Stack Overflow conversation pretty quickly. So you do this, and here it is. You see I've been to it many a time. We'll open this guy up. And if we scroll down, we want to do this one, the lazy option. That's us. So I'm just going to copy this and come back into Xcode. And we'll open up resources. We want info.plist. We're going to add a new one by hitting this plus button. We're going to type the name of it here and hit enter. You can see it's a dictionary. And then now you hit this arrow here, so now it's pointing down, and hit the plus button. And then you want to select allow arbitrary loads and change this to yes. Okay? So once you've done all of that, go ahead and hit run, and let's see what our project is looking like now. Drum roll, dun, 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 dun. And up comes our app, and it's loading. And we don't have anything here, but it looks like things are running here. I'm going to do a Control-C to kind of, maybe the server went out when I was going to say when the power went out, but it looks like it's still working. Yeah, if I do npm start, it looks like it's there. So maybe the server did work. Well, the ultimate test is to go and try and create a parse object and save it to the backend. That will really tell us if it's working or not. So let's go here to the view controller. Get rid of this dumb did receive memory warning. I've never used that function. Hope I never do. Because if it does, it means I'm dealing with a very intense app. And now that I'm inside of here, I'm going to just make a parse object and save it to the server. So I'm going to say let's make a dog object. If you know me, you know I love to use dogs as an example. So I'm going to say pf object, and I want to do one with a class name. Class name is going to be dog in this case. And I'm going to say the dog's name is going to be equal to Fido, and the dog's age is going to be equal to 8. That looks good to me. And then I'm going to say dog.save in background, and I want to do with block because I want to know whether this thing worked or not. Okay, so we hit enter on that. It'll give us this autocomplete. So for bool, I'm going to call this success, and then for error, I'm going to call this one error. Cool. And in here, I'll just say if success print Yahoo. And if it doesn't work, so we'll add the else here, else print freaking looks good. Okay, so now let's run our app. This is the moment of truth right here. I know we got the curl thing to work, but if this works, we know things are really rocking. So here is our simulator here. It's installing stuff. It goes in. Come on, you're dying. You're killing me with the suspense. And we have a Yahoo! Isn't that sweet? That means it works. Our app is working. So we now have an iOS app here, even though there's nothing going on. We've got huge layout issues. I don't even know why these black bars are here. Must be this parse starter project. But we were able to create a parse object and save it to our little server that's now running up on DigitalOcean. I mean, how cool is this? I'm updating my stickies right now. We tested with an iOS app. Boom. Now that is finished. So there you have it. Like I said, I just want to kind of go back and tell you some things that maybe I would change now. I think a big thing is you want to get DigitalOcean up and running like you want it. So I would go create a user that's not a root user. And then whenever you logging in and using stuff, you don't use that root password. I would set up SSH keys, and when you use that, you don't even have to log in with the password. It makes your droplets so much more secure. Seriously, it's like 1,000,000 times better if you do it that way. Some other stuff that you want to get is eventually you want to get a URL for this guy here. Where is it? Oh, we got rid of it. Let's go back to Xcode, app delegate. We just want this URL, right? So this thing eventually, you'd want it to be like mycoolapp.com or something like that. And if you're wondering like what this, :1337 is, this is the port that it's running at. All internet stuff usually runs at least if it's through like a web browser, it runs at port 80. So that's you might want your app to do that. If you do want to change that, I'm just going to show you real quick. This is just kind of bonus material. I'm going off the cuff here. So to stop your server here, hit Control-C. Yep, that stopped it. And let's do the ls, make sure we're in the right place. Yes, and now do nano index. Sorry, this is a little bit of slow connection here. Index.js. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom in this guy, you can see it's running on port 1337. So we could actually, if we wanted to, change this to port 80. And I think it would work. Let's see, I'll change this to 80. Oops, got to make sure there's a space there. Okay, I'm going to hit Control-X to exit. Yes, save it. Hit enter. Good. Now let's also, this is another terminal pro tip. If you hit the up arrow, it'll do whatever your last command was. You can kind of scroll through those until you get to the right one. So I'm going to try and find npm start. There it is. Hit enter on that. And it starts back up the server on port 80. So I think now if we change this to 80, it should for sure work. Fingers crossed. Yes, it's working. And then look, you can actually get rid of that :80 because all web stuff works through there. So we can actually come back here and get rid of this. So it's just like that. But eventually, rather than just being this IP address, you would want to have myapp.com. And there's tons of tutorials about how to get a URL to point to a DigitalOcean droplet. You don't need that from me. You might want to go to DigitalOcean and set up having backups done once a week, just so that if your server ever crashes, you have a backup that you can roll to, and your data isn't all for lost, Couple other things. So this, once you say, npm start, it's kind of starts your server that parse server is running on. But once you close this terminal thing, that'll stop running the server like you want it to. And so I found something called Forever that works with Node projects. So if you just search Node Forever, missed the knee here, but Google knows what I'm talking about. This is a way that you can kind of make it so that your parse server is running forever. And in fact, let's just roll through this real quick. I like doing this bonus material. It's kind of fun here. Take this line here. We're going to go into the terminal. Set Command C to end that. We need to install this forever thing through this. I'm going to come back here, see what the next thing that is we need to do. I don't think we need to do this forever monitor. That's kind of the advanced version. And then I think this is what we want, just the forever start and the name of your thing. So I'm just going to copy forever start. And if I come back here, I'm going to say forever start space index.js. And if I hit enter on this, okay, it starts this thing where now, even if I close out of this application, this forever application will just keep running the server over and over again. Now, I'm completely new to Node stuff. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I do notice that even if I clear out of this, right, hit close, and I go back to, I really should keep this tab open, copy this URL, paste it in, you can see, now if this doesn't work, I'm going to look like an idiot. Oh, it worked. I dream of being a website. So you can see that it's working even though I've closed that terminal. And remember, this is just the one on my computer. I can close this one too. If you still really want to be impressed, that'll work it. Now, there's probably some better way to do it on Node. I'm not sure what it is, but at least that's something for you there. So there you have it. The tutorial on getting parse server set up on DigitalOcean. I hope you really enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything else you need. I'm sure I or someone else who's watched this video could help you with that. If you're interested in learning more about iPhone programming, that's what I do full-time. I'm an iOS teacher. Go visit my website at madeupbypeople.com. You can see all my courses there, and in the link of this description, I'm going to leave a special coupon for my iOS course, which is my most popular course, which is kind of like for beginners. If you want a course, you can go get that. I also have this Kickstarter that's ending soon. This is kind of like the more intermediate thing. And I'm guessing if you're watching this parse tutorial, probably more of an intermediate person. So this actually ends in just about a day. So maybe by the time you're watching this, this class is ready. But anyways, really hope you enjoyed that. Again, comment if you have any questions. Thanks so much for joining me. And sorry, I just keep extending this, but I think this is really good moving forward. It was sad that Parse got shut down, but I think there's going to be real future with Parse Server. I think more and more the community will build out features, and I think it's going to be simpler than the tutorial that I made today. Like hopefully 3 years from now, you could set up your own server like in a couple of clicks, and you don't have to go enter in all these different things that we did. Who knows if it will eventually be like that, but anyways, have a good one. Thanks so much for watching.